Again, my mic is muted. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Ghabrana Nahi, EVENEMENT Conversations, powered by EVENEMENT Corporate Event Management. आज के जो हमारे मेहमान हैं वो बहुत ही खास हैं. I've been looking forward to this episode so much. He is a very, very popular travel writer, a genre in writing that I didn't know existed. So I'm very, very excited to call him on and listen to all of his adventurous and exciting stories of being and becoming a travel writer. So without further delay, I'd like to call on Salman Rashid.
Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Walaikum salam. I'm very well.
क्या हाल है सलमान अंकल आपके? आप ठीक ठाक हैं? You look fresh as ever.
Always fresh.
Okay, great. So we're going to jump right into the conversation. Salman uncle, I would really, really like to know how you actually became a travel writer. How it all came together.
Right. You know, when I was a child, children did not decide what they wanted to be like they do now. The fathers decided what the child was going to be. My father was a civil engineer. He thought I should be a civil engineer as well. And I love to tell this story. He used to beat the stuffings out of me trying to teach me math. I, for the life of me, could not understand mathematics. And धक्के धुके खा के बीएससी तक पहुंच गया और फिर मैं फेल हो गया. पहले इंटरमीडिएट में भी एक बार फेल हुआ. फिर इधर यहाँ पे जब थर्ड ईयर में फेल हो गया तो बहुत इत्तेफाक से एबट रोड पे मैं बाइसिकल, लाहौर के एबट रोड पे मैं बाइसिकल पे जा रहा था. तो वहाँ मैंने अपने एक दोस्त को देखा जिसे हम इबी बांदर कहा करते थे. तो मैं क्या, तू किथे खड़ा है? कहता यार एयरफोर्स का टेस्ट देना आया, तू भी आ, पायलट बनांगे. So this was 1970, I think, early 1970. I was 18 years old. So I parked my bicycle and I went in, and Amy flunked, I passed.
Oh wow.
And then went all the way to Central Medical Board in Karachi, where they found I was cockeyed, and they said I could not fly planes because I might fly into some other plane or some bird, not being able to see it. And they said I was fit only for ground branches. And by then, after having gone through all this, I had started looking at myself as a fighter pilot. I was flying after Indian jets, and I was destroying them at the rate of 1 a second. And I didn't want to be a ground thing, so I came back to government college and told my friends I didn't make it. I've got bad eyes. And they said कि पढ़ना लिखना तेरे वास दा रोग नहीं है. I hope people understand Punjabi.
They do. बिल्कुल समझ आते हैं.
पढ़ना लिखना तेरे वास दा रोग नहीं है. तू ISSB कर ली है, तू फौज चला जा. इथे तू नहीं चल सकता. BSc तू नहीं. So I joined the army, and then I ran away from studies to join the army, and 6 years later I ran away from the army to come back into studies, and not by going back to university or anything, but by reading in the libraries. I went to live in Karachi, and I read like mad, and I traveled, and I was always very fond of traveling. When I was in the army in Khania, I used to go to Rohtas, to Cheliawala, to all these ancient places. And, being a typical duffer Fauji, I had no idea what I was looking at. But the stories that I heard there somehow stuck in my mind. And there was a very interesting story in Rohtas, which is now part of my upcoming book on the Grand Trunk Road. An elderly man seeing a stool of youngsters fooling around told us a few stories which were actually historically true. So when I was living in Karachi, someone told me that I could be a travel writer. I was already married at that time, and I came home and told my wife, Shabnam, that I met this young woman at PTDC, Talat Rahim, and she thinks I can be a travel writer. And my wife said, yes, if you want to be a travel writer, why not? Few women would say that. So I was working in a multinational firm at that time. I gave up that job. No, I started writing first. I wrote for 2 years Humsafar magazine. You know, in 1984, I started with Focus on Pakistan, which was a PTDC magazine.
Yeah.
Moved on to Humsafar, and then came to newspapers. And in those days, in 1984, 83, people were dying to be able to write for Humsafar. I began there.
Yeah.
So I must have been good, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think I was a natural writer. And it didn't take anything. And I have here a little sign which says, choose a job you love and you will never have to work a day in your life. Confucius said that. So I gave up my job and I got into this. And thank God my wife supported me all the way, and things worked out pretty well.
Absolutely. And did you, at that point in time, did you give it a second thought when you were thinking about quitting your job at a multinational firm? It's a more secure job and a more secure career. Did you give it a second thought, कि करना चाहिए, नहीं करना चाहिए, or did you just go for it?
You see, it was a general duty job. वो जो फौजी जाके रिटायर फौजी जाके एक अच्छी जॉब करते हैं एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन की, वो लेकिन अदा जाफरी साहबा का एक शेर है, बाकी न रहे साख अता दश्ते जुनू की, दिल में अगर अंदेशा अंजाम ही आए, कि अगर आप ने दश्त में जाना है, कोई एडवेंचर करना है, तो आप वो इज्जत है उस एडवेंचर की, वो तो खत्म हो जाएगी अगर आप अंजाम से डर जाएं. तो हमने भी अंजाम वो कर दिया, ओवरलुक, और बस छोड़ दी. एंड शबनम stood right beside me, so that was all right.
Absolutely. I think it's बहुत important बात है, like having your spouse or your family support you in whatever decision you like to make, and helping you to find your true self and helping you find your passion and follow that. I think that's absolutely brilliant. अच्छा जी, so जब आपने initially लिखना शुरू किया, तो how did the process go? Like, would you travel to one place और आप वहाँ रहते थे, आप लिखना शुरू कर देते थे, कि आप in the moment लिखने वाली फील होती थी, कि आप ट्रैवल करके वापस आ जाते थे अपने घर में सुकून से, फिर आप बैठ के एक जगह पे लिखते थे, कि वो सिर्फ साइड बाय साइड थिंग, साथ साथ ही लिखते रहते?
You see, travel writing को हमारे यहाँ तो समझा जाता है ना कि ये एक एनेक्डोटल सी चीज है, आपने गप्पे सुना दी ये. But I was reading English travel, European travel writers, and in the English genre of travel writing, it is more than just anecdotal stories. And there was a wonderful, very funny, hilarious story, travel book called Kevin and I in India. These were two chaps, young chaps, who were traveling through. They didn't know any history or geography or anything. They were just telling what they were doing, and it was hilarious. This was in the 1980s. But serious travel writing had history, geography, sociology, anthropology, geology, and everything else, So to be a good travel writer, I had to read up. And, I used to first be just reading the works of early British travelers. And then something would strike me and I would go there take pictures, look around, do my measurements. Sometimes I had a tape, दर्जियों वाला इंची tape नहीं होता वो मेरे पास. I would take measurements and stuff, and then come home, read up some more, and then write my story. And in the beginning, this was very sort of peculiar. I would suddenly wake up at night, and I had this on the nightstand. I had a piece of paper and a pen, and I would write down a phrase, because this phrase would come to me in my dream, and it was a beautiful phrase which I could otherwise not have thought of.
Absolutely.
So now I do that too, but now there's no paper. But any one of the books lying on the nightstand, I scribble my phrase on the inside cover or whatever.
Yeah, wonderful. I think that's a very exciting and a very fun process. Just go with the flow. All right, Salman uncle, now we're going to step into our rapid fire round segment, in which you're going to see a couple of questions on your screen. मैं भी उन सवालों को दोहराऊंगी and rapid से answers देने हैं आपने, मजे के rapid से answers. So can we have the questions up, guys? All right. The first question is, if you weren't a writer, what would you be doing?
I would have been a clerk in that multinational firm. I would have retired as a bald old bastard, and which I still am actually. I'm not retired. If I weren't a writer, I would have just been a wasted, glorified clerk in that multinational firm.
And what a waste of such amazing talent that you have right now. Absolutely. Okay, Ji, next question. Your most adventurous and memorable travel experience?
The most adventurous was one of my early travels when I was not a travel writer yet, and I was just exploring. I was living in Karachi, and having read in one of the old gazetteers, or in the book by A Voyage on the Indus by Alexander Burns, that 7 miles from the sun in Sindh was this fort in the mountains called Ranikote. So 7 miles was an hour and 50 minutes of walk for me. I was 27 or 28 years old. And I thought, nothing, no trouble at all. I'll be there and back in a jiffy. So we set out, and it turned out that the fort was 30 kilometers, which is 20 miles.
Wow.
And we gave up the path that led to the fort, and we got lost in. A friend had joined me. We got lost in the hills, and we walked from 6 o'clock one morning in March. We walked until 4 o'clock the next morning.
Oh, wow.
We were very fortunate because southern Sindh in March can be hellishly hot, but it had been cloudy, and at night it even started raining. At 4 o'clock the next morning, we hit the road again, and the buses won't pick us up because they thought we were dakus.
Oh my God. Wonderful. Wow, that's quite an experience.
That was the most memorable one. I'll never forget.
All right. Okay, so my favorite question. What habit of yours does your wife dislike?
I'll have to ask her. I think every habit of mine. My bad language. That's what she hates. Doesn't dislike it, she hates it.
Okay. All right. Ajaji, next question. An author that you enjoy reading?
Oh dear. My favorite travel writer was Geoffrey Morehouse for many years. And I read a number of his books. He writes so beautifully. After that, then I sort of graduated from travel writing into hardcore history. And who's my favorite? Robin Lane Fox is a good writer. Robert Graves, incredible. And Mary Renault. These 3 writers, that if you want to read classical history, these 3 writers are the best in the world.
Absolutely wonderful. Okay, G, let us move on. Okay. What is the best advice that you have ever received in your life?
a friend, an Australian friend, Jeff Gowers, gifted me Matheson's book, The Snow Leopard, and in it he wrote, "It's good to have an end to journey towards, but in the end, it is always the journey that matters." Or words to this effect. I'll have to get the book from the rack to read the exact words. But it was something like this. It's good to have an end to journey towards, but in the end, it is always the journey that matters.
That matters and not the end. Absolutely. Wonderful. Wonderful advice. How would you describe yourself in 3 words?
Jesus.
That's 1 word.
How would I describe myself? Foul-mouthed bastard.
All right, wonderful. Those are perfect 3 words. Okay, let's move on to the next question. That was amazing. Okay, what is the first thing that you notice about another person when you meet them for the first time?
No, that's a really difficult one. I don't know what I want to or try to notice, but I think the first thing that comes to me are the vibes from that person, and that would be the first thing that I notice, I suppose.
All right, wonderful. Okay. Okay, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I would tell him to follow his heart and don't do what others want him to do. Do what he wants to do himself, and just stick to it. Never give up.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. It's wonderful. Your favorite holiday destination?
I don't have a favorite holiday destination.
You have so many.
I love going places, but my favorite holiday destination, this might sound corny, but the south coast of France, I fell in love with it many, many years ago when I traveled there for the first time in my life. I think I would like to go back there, or actually where France runs into Italy, and there are these little hills and these lovely little villages on the right by the sea, beautifully painted houses. That's the kind of place I would like to go to.
All right, beautiful. As soon as the pandemic ends, please let us out of here. All right, जी, this is the last statement question of our show, और ये हमारे शो के नाम के साथ जो है वो रेजोनेट करता है. आपने सेंटेंस को कंप्लीट करना है हमारे लिए. घबराना नहीं क्योंकि
मैं तो 68 साल का हो गया हूँ. घबराए नौजवान, मैंने तो और थोड़े सालों में मरमरा जाना है.
Okay, Gianni, that is one of the best answers that we've gotten for this show. I think the best we've gotten for this show. All right, wonderful. That brings us to the end of our extremely, extremely fun rapid fire round. Okay, so we have a couple of questions, Salman Uncle. Our live viewers are watching and they would like to ask you a couple of questions. I'm going to pick up one that we have right now. Ina Athar पूछती हैं कि how is book writing being evolved in this new era of technology?
I don't know. I mean, Shakespeare wrote with a quill, and my guru, Eric Shipton, the mountaineer, wrote with a fountain pen on his mountaineering expeditions. He carried fountain pen ink and a fountain pen and wrote on paper. I began by writing on an ancient typewriter I had inherited from my father. And now I'm writing on a computer. That's the only evolution I see. Otherwise, writing is writing, and it has to be good.
So the tool itself has changed, but the writing doesn't change. All right, okay. So Waqas Ahmed पूछते हैं कि your favorite book and why?
Oh my God. The questions are getting more and more difficult. I have a number of favorite books.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Herodotus, the Greek traveler and historian who wrote about 480 years before the Common Era, before Christ. Uh, his history is a great book. But closer to our time, Eric Shipton, who was a great mountaineer and explorer, his works are the best. And I think my greatest inspiration comes from Eric Shipton's two books, Upon That Mountain and Blank on the Map. These two books inspired me the most. So, in a way, these must be my favorite books.
All right. Okay, Avakas, I hope that answers your question. So, आपने जैसे बोला that did you start off by travel writing या आपको कभी बीच में आपने skip करके ऐसा होता है कि कभी किसी का block लग जाता है, वो एक genre से bore हो जाते हैं, फिर वो skip करके एक पे आते हैं, फिर वो वापस भी चले जाते हैं. So did you ever feel this kind of a dilemma in your process of writing? Did you skip around a lot?
No, I always say I was only good for this thing. This is the only thing I know how to do. I cannot write fiction. I would love to write fiction. I'm not trying to throw a very famous name around. I hate doing this, but I have to say this. V.S. Naipaul, the Nobel laureate, V.S. Naipaul, I had his affection. And I have to tell you this, he had affection for very few people. I was one of those lucky ones.
Yeah.
He once stood here in my study and he said to me two things. He said, "You write with wonderful clarity." And the other thing he said was, the things you say belong in a novel. You should write a novel. So I started writing a novel, and I have about 20 pages there with marginals by V.S. Naipaul. I sent him this printout of these 20 pages, and he wrote back saying, "Don't overload the reader. This is good," etc., etc. I think those pages for I don't know when. People say they'll fetch me a fortune, but I never wanted to be anything other than be a writer, and this is all I can do. Actually, can't write a novel.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So we have another question from Safina. These are all these are all the younger generation asking about. Do you think that with passing time, travel writing is slowly going to die out, or is it going to become an even bigger thing?
It's never going to die out because you see. People are right now writing about this world. In a few years, there'll be interplanetary travel and then interstellar travel, and then people will be writing Star Wars kind of travelogues. They'll be meeting people. Yeah. I believe the universe is peopled by other races, and so the people will be meeting people, and travel writing is never going to die out.
It'll be an all-new ball game, whole other ball game.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay, Zafina, sorry, I hope question. We are all right. We're now going to step into another segment, Salmanikal, in which we're going to show you a couple of pictures on the screen, and we would like you to give your thoughts on whoever or whatever it is that you see on the screen. Okay, guys, can we have the pictures up? All right. Okay. So the first picture up is
the brainless wonder.
All right.
You got my answer.
Yeah. We did.
Why don't you have some good people to show me? He's the man. He is the man who destroyed travel writing in Urdu in Pakistan.
Okay. That's something that viewers probably did not know. Okay.
Now, here's one great man, or one great mind who gave us hope and dreams that we still live by so many years after his passing. What a wonderful man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, G.
Saadat Hasan Manto. I am intellectually not even equipped to. I think he was a great mind, and this country did not
All right.
acknowledge the man.
Absolutely.
A time of madness, partition, the killing of hundreds of thousands of people, millions becoming homeless, and us, after all that, doing what we are doing to this country. The madness continues.
Absolutely. Absolutely in agreement. All right. All right, G. Do we have any more up, or are we putting them down?
What?
So within the, I'm saying within the, okay, so we always save the best one for the last. What do you think about this guy?
Sorry, show off.
All right, G, wonderful. I think that does bring us to the end of our pictures segments. Okay, Salman uncle, thank you so much for joining us on our show. Jate Jate, would you like to say a few words of wisdom coming from such a talented writer? We would love to hear some words of wisdom from you for our viewers and for myself, and for also the young people who, or the younger generation who aspire to become writers but may not be fully equipped with what they need or the resources that they need.
The only advice is that, once you've chosen a way of life, don't falter. Stick to it. Just keep on doing what you think you are good at doing, and you'll get good at doing it eventually. And don't give up. Just don't give up. That's all I can say.
All right. That is wonderful, wonderful advice coming from an absolutely wonderful person. Thank you so much, Salman uncle, for joining us today and for giving us time and for telling us all of the fun stories that you shared with us. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
All right. All right, viewers, that brings us to the end of today's show. उम्मीद है कि आपको हमारा शो अच्छा लगेगा. मुझे तो बहुत ही मजा आया सलमान साहब से बात करके, उनकी मजे की कहानियां सुन के, और ये ऐसी चीजें हैं that we don't really get to hear about these stories from just random resources. ये बहुत ज़्यादा talented लोग हैं जिन्होंने दुनिया देखी है और जिनका इतना experience है, and it's just wonderful, just communicating and talking with such esteemed guests. अगर for any reason आप आज का live show miss कर चुके हैं और आप नहीं catch कर सके live transmission को, तो please do go on our YouTube page. It's called EVENEMENT Pakistan. Like कीजिए, subscribe कीजिए, और आज का show और पिछले कहीं episode जो हम पहले shoot कर सके हैं आप वो भी देख सकेंगे. आज के लिए इतना ही. We'll get together again next week. We have lots more in store for you guys. अपना ध्यान रखिएगा. मेरी तरफ से खुदा हाफिज.